Welcome back to yet another edition of the I Prefer the 80s and 90s Sports podcast where I, Richard Harris, talk about why I prefer the sports world of the 80s and 90s to today. Today's topic, well, we're getting pushed out. And what I mean by that is the sports world of the 80s and 90s, we are getting pushed aside, forgotten, kicked to the curb, disrespected, punked, in every which way possible. No matter if you're listening to sports, no matter if you're watching sports, no matter if you're going to the games, everything about what we learned in that era is being thrown by the wayside, thrown into almost like a tornado spinning whirlpool, twister, hurricane. I mean, just the way we played sports in the 80s and 90s is just getting kicked to the curb. And it makes me sad and angry. It forced me to do a show like this because every day you turn on the television, you go to your social media page, and you get bombarded with just ridiculousness, nonsense. You get frustrated at what you see, hear, read, and it is just, it's frightening that people think that our views, our style of play, our everything is antiquated, unnecessary, foolish, and forgotten. Last night, watching the baseball game, Adam Wainwright said, I believe it was Adam Wainwright who said, "Boy, do I miss the days of when a starting pitcher comes out and he is the horse." He didn't use those words, but he was referring to pitchers like himself, like a Roger Clemens, like a Dave Stewart, like a Greg Maddux, like a Ron Guidry, a Don Sutton, an Oral Hershiser, a pitcher that basically was the guy. And a manager would rather have his head blown up than to go out to a mound and take his pitcher out than today's manager who just walks out to the mound and says, "Okay, well, we're winning 2-0. I know it's only the fourth inning, but I got to take you out because we got to protect the lead with the bullpen." Which, in my opinion, is not smart. It does work sometimes, but I think it's stupid. And I'll tell you why I think it's stupid. And I hate using that word stupid. So that's why I don't think that it's smart. Because hitters go into a game with a game plan. And most hitters' game plan is to game plan against the particular pitcher who's starting. And if a particular pitcher has a certain pitch that is unhittable or that is difficult to attack, they struggle. And when you go to the bullpen sometimes, you're doing a team a favor. You're taking out that one pitcher that they couldn't hit and bringing in other pitchers who might throw harder, that might not throw any pitches that resemble the previous pitcher. And all of a sudden, they start having some success. Last night, Dodgers game. The Arizona Diamondbacks starting pitcher was unhittable. 4 innings, 4 2/3 innings, they couldn't touch him. Then the Diamondbacks brought in the bullpen, and then all of a sudden the Dodgers got a hit there, and then finally in the 7th inning they scored some runs, and all of a sudden it's a 2-run game. And you're like, why in the world did you change the pitcher? Why didn't you let that pitcher pitch longer and then pitch like it's a normal game? Well, it worked. They won 4-2, but maybe they won't be so lucky the next time. The Phillies the other day. Wheeler is dealing. He is blowing away the Braves like he's had a no-hitter to the 6th inning. Then the Braves finally hit a home run, got a hit, made it 4-1. Then got another hit, and someone else hit a home run, and now it's 4-3. They go to the bullpen. The Braves win the game. Now, yes, normal situations you would have done the same thing because he was at or close to 100 pitches, but he was still effective. He was still throwing gas, and the manager went out and changed. But then you got the old school manager like Bruce Bochy, who had Dave Eovaldi pitch, and Eovaldi was on fire. And granted, they built up such a big lead that it didn't matter, but he was on fire. And Bochy was not even going near the mound because Eovaldi is a veteran pitcher. Eovaldi has pitched in World Series and playoffs and battle tested, so maybe he didn't want to touch it. My point is, in the 80s and 90s, you never would go out to the mound and bother a pitcher, period, unless he was getting lit up. Because the pitcher would look you in the face and be like, yo, I'm getting out this mess. Or, yo, I'm finishing this mess. Not today. Hell no. 100 pitches is done. And I talked about this in earlier blogs when I talked about how they said the athletes today are supposed to be bigger, faster, stronger, and better. And they're bigger, faster, and stronger. They're just not better. But for some reason, they're frail. They can't pitch more than 120 pitches. Because if they do, then they miss their next start or they're injured. Unfortunately, one of the greatest pitchers of this era, and Johan Santana, he throws a 134 pitch game, which happened to be a no-hitter, and he hasn't been heard of other than people. I mean, obviously now he's a lot older, but we haven't heard his name mentioned after that period of time in years. He ended up never pitching effectively again. Then you look at other sports. We're not going to pick on baseball. We're going to talk about other sports too. I'm watching hockey last night, and they were talking about their season picks for the year. And they had, of course, the greatest hockey player of all time sitting right there, Wayne Gretzky. And one of the guys he might have been joking, but he was talking about how the awards this year, that Connor McDavid is the favorite, but my man McKinnon on Colorado is in the same vein. He's just not, McDavid. And they were like, what are we supposed to do? Split the awards in half and give an award for second place? And then Gretzky looked at them all with this look of disdain, like, what are we going to do? Give everybody participation trophies? And I started to laugh because I'm like, people of this generation treat sports that way in a lot of instances, and it's irritating to me. The Boston Bruins last night opened up its season against the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks has a 19-year-old super phenom kid playing for them who people say has skill level that will make people think of the greats before him. Instead of the story being about the Bruins, because the Bruins need a story considering after what happened last year. They set all these records last year, the winningest team in NHL history, most points in NHL history, but they got knocked out of the playoffs in the first round. Instead, the story and the headline was about Mr. Bedard getting his first ever goal in a 3-1 loss. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, we respect the fact that he got his first goal. It should be mentioned. Congratulations. You're 890 goals behind Wayne Gretzky, something like that. And instead, they're talking about the Bruins. You're talking about him and not talking about the Bruins. Now, the Bruins, who've lost some players to retirement, are going to try to come back from that disappointment and bring a Stanley Cup to Boston. I don't like that. It's a big deal. The kid did something nice, but it's not a bigger deal than a team that was the greatest team in the history of the league coming back the next year and, well, starting all over again and trying to figure out how not to have the same disappointment than last year. And I'm certain during the match, they talked a lot about it, but the whole focus of the match was to make sure that everyone got to see this kid get his first goal. Again, something that they would never do back in the day. We would never waste our time knowing that there's 80,000 more games left. His one goal, his one moment is that big a deal. ESPN has changed over the years. Obviously, when LeBron played his first basketball game, they put it on against the Sacramento Kings as if that's a big game, but they put it on TV to us to watch, which I found at that time, I was like, okay, I'll stay up late to see this kid play. They didn't show many of his preseason games, so okay, I'll watch. And he had a nice game. But my point simply is they didn't break into like, here's LeBron James' first shot. And he made it. Oh my gracious. Well, the whole Sports Center, like 5 different times, showing his first game. Tonight, the NFL game, you're going to have Denver playing Kansas City. Kansas City represents the new school. Denver represents somewhat of an old school vibe. Denver's not had a good season so far, and most people think this game is going to be a dud. Kansas City likes to entertain. They like to do fun plays. They like to show how good they are. They like to not necessarily embarrass people, but they like to upstage people. A huge difference from the way like the 49ers used to play when they were the team that had the eye candy. 49ers always had these plays that no one ever seen before, but they never were showy. They never made you look like a fool in the sense of showing off how good they were. Neither did the Patriots. Patriots played the football game, and whatever the outcome was, the outcome was. Not the Chiefs. The Chiefs play games with you. The Chiefs want to embarrass you. And if the Chiefs lose, the network will say, put an asterisk by it. Or the network will give an excuse as to why they failed. I find that funny. But basketball will be doing the same thing coming up soon. Victor Wembanyama about to have his debut, and it's going to be big deal, must-see TV. And they're going to want to see his first baskets. They already showed a preseason game of him playing against Chet Holmgren. And I'm thinking, really thinking hard. Did we do the same thing for Olajuwon, for Ralph Sampson, Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing? Those guys in my generation were the generational talent. In fact, Patrick Ewing's the guy who made the NBA draft what it has become. But I'm thinking, Danny Manning, Michael Olowokandi, we're being thrown aside because the way we play the game back in the day apparently does not equate to the way they want it to play now. And the sooner that we realize that, the happier we'll become? No, because there's a method to our madness. Bill Belichick is getting raked over the coals because of his old school ways is not resonating with the game today. I completely disagree. Bill Belichick's problem is he don't have the players that he has when he was ruling the roost. Simple as that. And I'm not talking about Brady because nobody thought that Tom Brady would be what he became. Nobody. In fact, if Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hit by the New York Jets, by the linebacker whose name escapes my head, Tom Brady doesn't even come on the field for at least a couple of years. Because Bledsoe wasn't injury prone. Bledsoe was a really good quarterback. And in fact, what history note that people don't ever talk about is Brady led the Patriots to the championship. Yes. But to get to the championship, it was Drew Bledsoe who came into the game to bail out Brady because Brady got hurt. Drew Bledsoe came in and threw the game-winning touchdown pass, not Brady. Think about that. And I'll tell you another thing, too, about Belichick. Belichick Patriot teams, they didn't have, like, number 2 pick in the draft, or they didn't have, like, the players that you were looking, saying that that guy's going to be an all-pro. No. They prepared. They had a system that worked for the players. Vincent Brisby. Compare Vincent Brisby to Michael Irvin, Jerry Rice, Andre Rison, Andre Reed, Tim Brown. You wouldn't. But Belichick knew how to coach up the defense, prepare the offense. The offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniel, and all the other coaches that helped make that system great. That's why they won. Right now, they don't have any receivers for him to throw to. They don't have a tight end. Patriots have always been famous for having a tight end. Ben Coates, Russ Francis, just to name a few. Rob Gronkowski. Always had a tight end. Ben Watson. This kid don't have a tight end to throw to. Get him a tight end. But the way the game has evolved today, he's not keeping up with the Mahomes, the Andy Reids, the Kyle Shanahans. And until he figures that out, they got issues, brother. Our way is not a bad way. Our way needs a little tweaking, but still effective if you give it a chance.